Many years ago, I remember going through the grocery store and thinking, oh my God, everything feels like it's poison, and I just felt like a victim. I felt so just scared. I had this feeling like I didn't have control of my life. And that's something that I don't want women to feel. I feel like in this modern world, we have so much thrown at us that we're overwhelmed. And the last thing you need is to also become a chemist so that you can protect your family from things. And so what little that I can do to alleviate that pressure is kind of the point for me.
Hello, everybody. I have a special treat for you today. I'm here live with Leah Segedie from Mamavation, and we are going to be talking about her study on PFAS in diapers. This is huge, everybody. I am so excited Leah has shared this information with us and that she has done this study because it really, really furthers non-toxic research for babies and for mamas like us. So, Leah, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, you are so amazing. I really love the work that you do. So it's really exciting to have you on the Non-Toxic Mommy podcast. So I am a huge fan of Mamavation. You truly do some amazing work there. Why don't you start by telling our listeners what you do at Mamavation? Tell us about the studies and the research that you do, because truly it is one of the best resources out there for anyone trying to live a cleaner lifestyle. So let us know a little bit about the work that you do.
Well, okay, so Mamavation does category non-toxic investigations on pretty much anything you can bring into your house, from diapers, for instance, coming up, to oils, to personal care products like period underwear and, tampons, and any types of food, and cookware, all kinds of things. I have a scientific panel of many scientists that I work with who kind of like focus me in on some places to look at and help me communicate the messages. We also do a lot of lab consumer studies. We send a lot of products off to the lab, so that's kind of what we're known for. But we also do investigations on materials. Things like cookware would be something like where we would send our staff to like email cookware companies and getting very specific information about coatings and those types of things for small kitchen appliances, cookware, et cetera, et cetera. Or we do investigations based on public information like, ingredients, what's on the ingredient panel. And, it's based on what's needed. So a lot of times, we just need to know what's the best body oil out there or something like that. And the ingredients are all out there. So we send our staff out to find as many body oils as they can find. And then we analyze the ingredients. We put it in like an Excel spreadsheet and we kind of go through it. And then we kind of do a not our favorite category, better category, and best category. And we make it three-pronged for a really important reason. It's that understanding that not everyone's the same, not everyone's in the same level. Some of us can afford things, some of us cannot. But it's good to be educated about the issues and then have options. And so it gives you that ability to go to our website, read about any category of product, be more informed. And then at the very bottom, you can see all of the products displayed for you, very well organized, so that you know what's not our favorite, which be what we would avoid, and then the better and best categories. And then you make your decision based on your family and what's going on in your life. No judgment whatsoever. So, and then we also have a community that we're really supported behind the scenes on Facebook. I mean, I'm really heavily in there. And it's about our work, and lots of women supporting each other. And that's where I get all my best ideas is, these women are telling me what their needs are, and we're creating content based on their needs and what's not out there right now.
That's amazing. I love how connected you are to your community. I'm in your Facebook group and I know you're in there every single day.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you. You get the best feedback from your audience. They're your people and they're telling you what they need and what they want to know. I just think that's so amazing. But I don't even know if anyone realizes how intensive these studies are that you do and just how expensive some of these lab tests are. Like, I think one of the first things I ever said to you when we connected was like, I know how expensive lab testing is because I have a supplement company. I run third-party testing and it adds up. I mean, it's several $100s per product typically. And that's just with one lab. And we typically send our things out to multiple labs. So like the fact that you're doing third-party testing on consumer products from like cookware to diapers and all of this stuff, I just think that is amazing. But like, that is also really expensive. And I think that the value of what you provide is absolutely tremendous.
I think for me, it's important to serve our community. So I'm not in social media for me. I'm in social media to be of service. And so people tell me what they need. And then I take it very seriously and we evaluate things. And I sit there and I'm like, does this need to be tested? And how can I test that? And can I afford to test that? But I got to tell you, we spend more on testing than I bring home personally. And I'm actually pretty proud of that because, you know, I look around and there's nobody spending as much money as we are on testing consumer products. I don't know, maybe like EWG or something like that. But we're little and we're very like flexible. I mean, and I can turn at a dime, you know, and a lot of those big companies that are doing it, they have to plan things out for years. And I'm kind of planning things out sometimes for months. But the way I look at it is, you know, many years ago, I remember going through the grocery store and thinking, oh my God, everything feels like it's poison, you know, and I just felt like a victim. I felt so just scared. I had this feeling like I didn't have control of my life. And that's something that I don't want women to feel. I feel like in this modern world, we have so much thrown at us that we're overwhelmed. And the last thing you need is to also become a chemist so that you can protect your family from things. And so what little that I can do to alleviate that pressure is kind of the point for me. And creating content that nobody else has, because I'm answering questions that women have brought me about their families that nobody else has answered for them. And I just stepped up and said, I'll do it. I'll do it. No one else is going to do it. So I'm going to start doing it. And we've been doing a lot of testing since 2019, maybe 2018 is when we first started doing it. But we started doing it a lot in 2020. And most of what we've been testing is organic fluorine, which is an indicator for PFAS. And it's problematic. PFAS is really hard to test for because there's over 15,000 of these chemicals, 15,000. And so it is impossible to test them all, literally impossible. And just to give you an idea, one of my advisors, Scott Belcher, he's a professor, but he's also one of the scientists that creates new tests to be able to identify PFAS. That's what he does. I call him the alligator wrangler. He's like the sweetest man in the world. You would never know that he wrangles alligators out of lakes, anesthetizes them, takes their blood and part of their flesh, and then puts them back in so that he can monitor PFAS for the federal government. You would never know that in a million years that this man does this because he's the sweetest guy, but he legit does this.
Okay, wait, so you're saying he does that? He actually does that because he's testing environmental levels of PFAS.
Yeah, so I mean, they have to constantly develop new tests. So when I told you about those 15,000 chemicals, there's only assays, as in tests, for maybe about 100. Maybe 100 out of 15,000. Now, in Scott's lab, he can identify about 150. So that's what I'm saying. He's creating these new testing methods that are then used by private labs down the road. But he finds them in these alligators. You know what I'm saying? You would never think in a million years, why alligators? Well, alligators are at the top of the food chain. It's all going to concentrate in them just like humans, just like polar bears. So they're great to analyze and PFAS is in blood and it's in flesh. It's not in fat like, you know, other contaminants are. So you test the fat, it's not going to be there. It's going to be in the blood. It's going to be in the flesh. So it's a different type of chemical because it expels oil. It pushes it away. It's a waterproof type of chemical. And so you're not going to find it in a lot of oil. You're going to find it outside or pushed aside. And like you can kind of see that in testing, like when you do like beauty testing, because we do a lot of beauty testing. And if something like a mascara sits on the shelf for a long time, the PFAS will push away from the oil over time. And so one use, you'll get like one type of, you know, a certain amount, and then you dig in there a little more and it's like double that because it's all different inside because it's pushing away. So it's an interesting phenomenon, but you know, it shows you that with Scott's blessing, we test for something called organic fluorine. And the reason we do that test is all PFAS have fluorine in them, all PFAS. And then there's other things that we could find in organic fluorine, but they're nothing that any mother wants in a child. So it could be PFAS, it could be pharmaceutical drugs, it could be fluorinated plastic, which is also a type of PFAS. It could be a pesticide, which is also a type of PFAS, and it could be refrigerant chemicals, those kind of things. None of those things are anything that any of our community wants in their food, personal care products, diapers, et cetera, et cetera. So we are good testing for organic fluorine and putting that up there. It's an indication that the chemical is in there. It's very likely to be PFAS. We can't say 100%, but it's 100% something you don't want in your food, personal care product, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, the labs, like I was saying about the labs, they're expensive. I think I don't want to give a number and be wrong, but we probably spent so far this year between 60 and 70,000 on labs. So it is quite a bit of money that we're putting.
So much. Wow.
Like I said, I mean, it's important to me to be able to answer the questions of our community. I care about them. I can't solve all the problems at once, but I really take things seriously. And how do I make this money? Because I know you're probably going to ask me, so I'll just answer that for people before they have that question. But it's really simple. The vast majority of the money comes from me. It comes from affiliate sales and it comes from ad revenue. And it's after the fact. So I've already done the investigation. I've set things up very, very transparent in the post. And then there's links in the post. And if you buy from those links, that fuels all of our lab testing, our research, everything. And so that's how we get the vast majority of our money. And the second way we get our money is through donations through Environmental Health News. So Environmental Health News is one of our partners. They also bring for us a whole class of great scientists that we work with as well. And they donate to us. So we send people that want if they want a tax write-off with a 501c3, they can donate there and then they send that to us. And so, that's also how we make our money. But most of it, the vast majority of it, and I would say 70 to 80% is us. It's us raising the money ourselves. And then the community, I'm very clear with the community. I say, if you buy this, we're going to be able to afford more testing. And so, our community goes and they're like, I need oils. I'm going to Leah's site and I'm clicking on her links. And that's what they do. And because it's a win-win for everybody. I win, they win, the labs win, everybody gets the testing, everyone knows what's going on with the brands. And so it's such a beautiful little thing that we've set up. It just feeds itself. And,
I think it speaks to the power of your community and how interested they are in the work that you're doing and all of this research. So we talked a little bit about the PFAS testing. I want to just take a step back and can you define or explain what PFAS are, just high level? What is the main concern? And then of all the chemicals of concern out there, there's so many, right? Why do you choose to focus specifically on PFAS? Because I've noticed a trend that a lot of your testing is focusing on PFAS. Can you explain that to the listeners?
So the reason we focus on PFAS is because it's persistent. Now, what that means is it doesn't go away. So there's some things that you eat or you consume or it comes into your body and within a couple days to a couple weeks, it's out. You've urinated out, you've defecated it out, it's gone, or the vast majority of it is gone. But this specific chemical stays anywhere from months to 40 years, depending on which one of those 15,000 chemicals. And we don't even know how long each one of those chemicals last because we don't have information on 15,000 of them. We only really have information on 100 or 150 of them. So that's one of the main reasons it's persistent. The second reason is I'm a boy mom and PFAS is incredibly bad for boys. It goes into your body and it's kind of similar to phthalates in the sense that it tricks your body into thinking it's androgen and testosterone, those types of hormones. And for little boys, that causes all kinds of problems having to do with reproduction, intelligence. The same thing will happen with girls, but to a lesser extent, because for some reason, girls' bodies are a little more forgiving in that sense, I would say. And we have ways to detox that boys don't, every month we are menstruating and your blood will have the PFAS in it. So every month you're kind of detoxing and getting it out. But this isn't true for boys. They don't have these natural avenues of being able to get rid of these chemicals. So PFAS is really bad in all the ways that hormones are bad. Hormone disrupting chemicals are bad. So I'm just going to list off a couple things. So I told you about the persistence. It's a reduction in immunity. Whether you vaccinate or you don't vaccinate, it doesn't matter because your immune system needs to work regardless. And so one of the things that they know is PFAS specifically will bring down your ability to respond to a vaccine. And that's because it's bringing down the immune system. So that test was done, several of them have been done in babies. And they know that because of all these tests that have been done on babies and studied babies. And that's how they were able to figure out the vaccination response. It also increases the risk of allergies, asthma, those types of things. It affects your growth and your learning and your behavior. So it can make a kid super hyperactive, not able to learn, not able to sit still. All of those hormonal things that help with the development of a child, that's all part of PFAS for boys and girls. It increases cholesterol levels for grown-ups, fat, obesity. That's a big one. So for women, it's like it's making us fat, all of us. And the more PFOS you have in your body, which is a very specific kind that's really in a lot of fish, actually. So you have PFOS is highly linked to not only making you fat, but the people who struggle to lose weight and end up gaining it back plus more are more likely to have high levels of PFOS in their body. And this is one of those chemicals that stays in your body for a very long time. So it's built up over years. And so, these types of things just make my head explode because I feel like a lot of women would be thinking like, is it in me? Is that why I'm having trouble losing weight? It's a very big possibility if you get your blood checked and you find this. Yeah, cardiovascular disease. Now we get into pregnancy. Lowers a woman's chance of getting pregnant, more likely to have a miscarriage. It lowers male fertility. It causes endocrine disruption and disrupts normal thyroid function. So all of things that have to do with hormones that impact like pretty much everything in our lives, here or there, PFAS is right in the center of that. And it's not just in the center, it's stuck. It's like stuck in your body. There is a couple of ways. There is one way that we know that we can get rid of it, and that's through blood donations. Now, this is the scary thing. And it's like, who wants to do that? Like, you know what I'm saying? But how they figured this out is one of the professions that's one of the most polluted professions is firemen, because PFAS is in houses and houses burn. And, plus they have this, protective equipment on that is full of PFAS to protect them from all kinds of things. Plus they have their firefighting foam, plus. So they're just exposed like a wazoo. So the scientists looked at them and found that the only way to bring those levels down was blood donation, and plasma being the best way. And so they sent all these firemen out for plasma donation and watched their levels go down. But that's it. That's all that they've been able to scientifically prove right now. There are a lot of people online that say that you can detox in this way or that way, but I'm not so sure about all those other ways. But for sure, if you're a woman, hello, hallelujah, with your menstruation every month, right? Because we're just like, bye-bye, literally can be like, bye-bye, like as it's leaving. And nobody's safe from this chemical. It's in like 98% of the population. And so it's not a question of do you have it, it's a question of how high your levels are. So that's kind of, now why are these chemicals in why are they even here? They're the waterproof chemicals. They are the, stain-free chemicals. They are the chemicals that have been just amazing because, like Gore-Tex clothing is one of them. Stain Master carpets was one of them. This is just Teflon pans. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just been everywhere. And the other thing is we got rid of our Teflon cookware. Most of us did, especially if you're listening to like you and I, you'd be totally getting rid of that Teflon cookware. But the manufacturers didn't get rid of the Teflon coated drums that they have to produce the food and produce the personal care products and all that stuff. So that is why it's so important to test, because even if they say we're PFAS free, usually when brands say that, this is the vast majority of the time, what they have done is they have operated a test that tests between 14 to maybe 60 specific PFAS compounds. They go down really low to look. However, can you call yourself PFAS free when there's 15,000 of these suckers out there? You know what I'm saying? Like, so that testing, and when they say that and they claim PFAS free, our audience needs to know, okay, what does that mean exactly? And usually it's just we've operated a test and tested 14 chemicals. And so we're making this claim. That's the vast. And so that's why it's so important to test all of these brands and all of these products, because I'm able to find things that, you would never know or you would never guess.
Yeah. Well, you're using a marker, right? It's basically a marker that tells you this is very likely to be there, or this is going to, there's some presence of PFAS.
Right.
So, okay. So my mind is pretty blown from everything that you just said. I didn't actually know that PFAS was linked to hyperactivity. I didn't know about donating blood. I usually pass out after I donate blood. So I'm going to find a way to make that work for me. But holy cow, I have a newfound appreciation for my menstrual cycle. So thank you. I didn't even connect the dots there. So thank you, nature. Thank you to our bodies, the female body. Amazing. Okay, so let's talk. Thank you for explaining what PFAS are and why they're so problematic. Now let's talk about diapers. Okay, so I know you just did this big study. You dropped this big study on diapers. I'm curious, first of all, there's so many baby products out there, and babies are so sensitive and susceptible. I'm curious, why diapers? Why did you start there?
Well, the first reason is because our community asked me. So there were several women in the community who were like, Leah, you haven't tested diapers yet. I'm really curious about diapers. We're hearing all this green marketing and which companies are real and which are not real. Some of them are making PFAS-free claims. They just had questions, and I didn't have the answers. And when I don't have the answers, I'm like, well, maybe we should test, So we started doing that. And so I was testing disposable diapers. And then a friend of mine used to own a cloth diaper company. And I interviewed her. I'm like, well, why did you stop selling or close your brand down? And she basically said to me something to the effect of that she was pushed out by the industry because she was demanding from the manufacturers for them to make better materials that were safer for babies. And they kind of got together and pushed her out. And then all of the stores stopped buying her products. And it was like, and she's like, you need to start testing. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to start testing, and a lot of people put these kind of things in my ear, just go check this, just go check out that. And I'm very appreciative of that. I don't take anything for face value. So when she said that, I was just like, we should start testing. So I started testing, and some of the biggest brands we found some issues with. And so we actually found more problems in the cloth diapering industry than we did in the disposable diaper industry. And let me see if I can show you. So we've got broken down by category of how many things that we tested. We did test quite a bit. I want to say we got a total of 15 detections from 65 diapers and cloth diapers. But broken down by category, 17% of disposable diapers, but 30% of reusable cloth diapers. So that's a little bit of a jump.
That's crazy though, because the mindset, even I've said this, is like, if you really truly want a non-toxic diapering experience for your baby, go with cloth. Right. Now, cloth has changed over the years. It's gone from like cotton to blends and polyester and synthetics and stuff like that. So it's just absolutely mind-blowing to me that you found more indications of PFAS in cloth diapers than you did disposable.
I know, and it's so not intuitive, but honestly, that's the way a lot of things are. For instance, when we did marinara sauces a couple years ago, and we looked at like 60 marinara sauces. The only brands that had issues was 4 organic brands, and that was it. Not in the conventional ones, it was 4 organic brands. And it makes me think that they might be using the same exact manufacturer behind the scenes, who might have a drum coated with God knows what, and it's coming out because it's, acidic and it's pulling stuff off of the drum. And, to me, it made perfect sense, but it wasn't an intuitive thing that I found. And so, of course, I go to the Organic Trade Association and I'm like, hey, I found something kind of problematic. And they basically said, not our problem, it's the FDA's problem. We just follow the rules of the FDA. And the FDA allows PTFE, which is Teflon chemicals, in food, personal care, and all that stuff. It's totally legal what's happening. And, fluorinated plastics are legal. All of this stuff is legal. And so they were like, not our problem. And I'm like, oh, I think it's your problem. People, organic eaters, are not going to like this. And, and it's kind of a problem where, you have smaller specialty manufacturers who have outdated equipment or older equipment. And then they'll specialize in something like organic or allergy friendly or what have you. And they've got this halo around them from what they're doing, but they're not fixing the equipment. They're not updating the equipment. And so we've seen things like that behind the scenes. And so a lot of this is just, it's marketing, you know, and it's like, and as a business owner, you focus on what you're good at. You don't tell people about what you're not good at. It's just, it kind of shows to us behind the scenes when we do the testing, you know, what's going on with manufacturing. And, you know, we've done all kinds of things, or diapers, we've done toilet paper, we've done yoga pants, sports bras. I mean, I've done 23 of these investigations. 23. This will be my 24th. So I've seen like thousands of these tests. And so from my perspective, marketing is marketing and labs are labs. And I will tell the story of the labs. And that I think is far more important to women than the flashy things that they put in front of us to get us to buy. And so, you know, it's kind of like I'm that stopgate with marketing, you know, that's nice, but let me test your product.
I also think it's a reflection of the way that manufacturing has changed, whether we're talking about diapers or tomato sauce.
Right.
It really reflects the fact that the people are outsourcing manufacturing. And I'm not talking about overseas. I'm talking about back in the day, a company would own their own plant.
Yeah.
And it would take millions and millions of dollars for someone to make consumer-based products. And that has shifted. Now it's a third-party, you know, outsourced kind of thing. And unless you own your own equipment and are doing it yourself, or you have tremendous oversight, it's really difficult to be able to control everything down to the very last detail. And so the fact that you found, you know, problematic results in organic tomato sauce or pasta sauce, like, I don't think that the founders of these companies wanted to cut corners. They had good intentions, but it really comes down to like a product or a step in the manufacturing process at the manufacturing plant, or an ingredient that they source or something like that. And that's really where this gets to be very difficult. And now bringing this back to diapers, there are so many components to a diaper, whether you're talking about a cloth diaper, like an all-in-one or something, that you're talking about a disposable diaper. And so I think that's why some of these results are just kind of shocking. And, you know, some of the brands that we're seeing test high are having these you know, these lab results come back really, really high for PFAS. So I don't know. I mean, what does a customer do? Like, what does a consumer do knowing that, like, yes, these brands are trying their best. They have good intentions, but like, you know, something I thought was clean isn't actually clean. How do you actually know that you're buying safe products?
So the hard part is you don't, unless you have some intense third-party certifications. But even then, there's nothing that makes a diaper PFAS free. And that was actually one of the things that we found out, which was very difficult. Ocotech or Ecotech is one of those certifications that Mamavation, in a group of about 20 other NGOs, nonprofits that are like non-toxic nonprofits, we all got together behind the scenes and we sent letters to GOTS, we sent letters to Ocotech, we sent them to all the major certifications demanding that they start implementing PFAS in their certification. So Ocotech met us halfway. So they implemented PFAS testing, but the PFAS testing that they implemented wouldn't tell you the whole story. And so that was kind of evident in our testing because we found 2 brands with Ocotech certification that had indications of PFAS. And that's not what the consumer thinks is happening, because one of these brands in particular was making PFAS-free claims based on the certification that they had. And so that was interesting. So let me back up and tell you a little bit about what Ocotech has done.
Okay.
So remember how I told you there were 15,000 of these chemicals? There's what I do is called total organic fluorine testing. We have to test at a very high level. I'm not low in the parts per billions. I'm in the parts per millions, which is actually so high. You should not find things this high. So, but it's a line we have to draw because it's the only line we can draw to include all of those 15,000 chemicals in one test. So there's another type of testing called extractable organic fluorine, which is EOF instead of TOF. And that is the testing that Ocotech decided to put on their certification. Now, let me tell you why that's a problem, but I'll tell you first why that test is good. That test is great because you can look down to the parts per billion and go really far down, a lot farther than our test can go, but there's a big glaring problem. Remember how I told you there's a lot of Teflon in manufacturing, and that's like most of the PFAS chemicals are actually Teflon chemicals, PTFE? This testing cannot extract any polymers, which means it can't extract any of the Teflon, which means you won't know. You'll get a non-detect, and there could be a ton of PTFE in there, Teflon chemicals. The testing would never know. So the testing that Ocotech is relying on, it's not really telling you anything about the chemicals that are the most common in manufacturing. It's only telling you about the chemicals that we're hoping aren't there. You know what I mean? Like, they shouldn't be there. We didn't add them. But it's not telling you about the chemicals that are probably more likely to be there. So they met us halfway, but they didn't really do what I think the consumer thinks they did. And so that was pretty evident in our testing with those two brands. One brand was a disposable diaper. One brand was a cloth diaper. And I mean, it's evident. And so the problem is, in like the state of California has passed laws that if these companies rely on this type of testing, they will be outside of that law, breaking the laws in California, because in California, they're mandating specific levels, like no intentional PFAS, but even if there's stuff in there, it can't be over this level. And if you're not using the kind of testing that we're doing, you're going to miss the boat. And so this is very problematic for these brands. They need to start doing the type of testing that we're doing, because that's what the laws of the state of California and New York and a lot of other states are basing it on: total organic fluorine, not extractable organic fluorine.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So obviously this extractable organic fluorine test is not reliable, and it's not even catching what is most likely to be the common source of the problem, right? So it's giving brands false confidence in their products. So let's say some brand tests poorly on any of your studies. Can they reach out to you? Like, can they be advised by you, or like, what should they do? I mean, I'm just asking, like, from a practical perspective. Again, I don't think these people have bad intentions, but like, what should they do? How do they do this? Do they go run their own lab tests? Do they not rely on Ocotech, or however you say that? It's like, what do they do? What does a brand owner do?
So first of all, it depends on how they come at me. You know, if the brands come at me and they're like, we want to play battle of the experts, I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, that's not what I'm here for. Go battle of the experts somewhere else. You know, I don't have time. I don't have time to play battle of the experts. I don't have time for your emotions. Like, I'm serving my community. If they come to me and they're sincere and they want to figure this out, we absolutely work with them. I work with them hours and hours and hours, and I don't charge them. This is completely free. And not only is it free, I have a database of all these products and brands that have reformulated, and I can tell these brands they found it here, they found it there, look here, look there, and I can give them all of that information. But I don't give it to people who just want to come in and whack me with a bat. You know, I just don't have time. I mean, I did it a lot when we first started testing, but what happened was it's so emotionally taxing for me. I just can't do my job and do that at the same time with people who don't appreciate my role. If people appreciate my role, I'm very willing to work with them. I send them to our lab. They get to use our lab, you know, and they can use, there's other labs you can use as well. But it's like, I want to know what's going on, and I want to know to change those numbers. I want to know what the contaminant was and how you fixed it. And then I want labs from the same place that I go to, you know, to kind of show me, now we're clean. You know, sometimes I pay for those labs myself. Sometimes I let the brands do them themselves. It just depends. It depends on how close the relationship is, how trustworthy they are. I have to make that gut check on my own. So it's not always the same, but we are absolutely open to helping these brands do a lot. And we've done this with like a ton of green beauty brands, toilet paper brands, clothing brands, you know, behind the scenes, and help them go from, I don't know, numbers to nothing, to non-detect. And there's always something that they find, you know, fluorinated plastics are a big problem with packaging. A lot of these brands have no idea that they're wrapping something in a plastic that's been fluorinated. And why that is so problematic is because the same plastics that we think are so safe, poly and polyethylene, polypropylene. These same plastics sometimes are shored up with PFAS. So when it's a gas,
Crazy.
it's a gas that's put on the surface of the plastic. And the reason they do it, and the plastic manufacturers are not always transparent about this. So there's a lot of brands who've gotten caught up in this fluorinated plastic issue, and it wasn't on the data sheets, it wasn't anywhere, and they tested the plastics and boom, there it is, and they just remove it and things were fine after that. So it's like sometimes it's as simple as packaging, other times it's things like drums or lubricants that are used in the factory or just sprays and things like that. I mean, there are so many things that it could be, but most of it are these PTFE fluorinated Teflon type chemicals. That's the vast majority of what we find all the time. Now, there are companies that I've worked with where they've showed me, oh my God, and look, we did other testing down to this level that we don't test, and we found something in organic blueberries, or we found something here, found something there. And so they've had to implement reverse osmosis water filtering, and stuff like that. So we have seen a lot of interesting things at that level, but that's really small compared to the testing that we're doing. The vast majority of it's Teflon, it's PTFE, the vast majority of it that we've seen and we've heard from these brands, it's PTFE. So we got a big PTFE problem, and you got to test for it. You don't know if you have it, and you really can't test lower to find it. You know what I'm saying? So you have to kind of rely on these surface tests that it doesn't identify exactly what chemical is, and you don't know where it's coming from. So it's really like when these brands figure this out, and they're just like, oh my God, it's not an easy process to fix. This is monumental manufacturing chaos. And again, it goes back to the global supply chain. It goes back to these drop shipping type manufacturers. They don't have their own manufacturing. They don't have their own, they're not walking the floors, and they don't know a lot of the answers, they don't know to ask these questions. That's the other thing. So a lot of these small business owners have not been in this industry for decades, like say other people at bigger companies are, to have the Q&A, to have the attorneys, to have the people, the quality control, quality assurance, to be able to know what questions to ask. A lot of times they just don't know what they don't know. And so that's also some of the problems that we find on our end is like very well-intentioned people can get caught up in this in a really bad way. And that's just kind of how this has been happening. And I wish it wasn't so. I wish it was all the bad actors, you know what I'm saying? Or we could just like be like, oh yeah, Unilever, oh yeah, Nestle, you know what I mean? But it's not that simple.
Nestle. So, okay, so it's definitely a challenging landscape. I think for the listeners of the show, I do want to share that like there is really good news in this study too, right? You tested several brands that were non-detect for fluorine.
Yeah.
Right?
So the vast majority was non-detect for fluorine. It was so of everything that we tested, 23% of it came up with a detection. So that means a lot more was fine. And so that is the good news. So this is not as bad as sports bras. Sports bras was something we found 65% of the industry. It was like, oh my God. But this is 23. So this is doable. You can make a very simple change here and not have to worry about this. So that is really good news. And I feel like the other part of this is the Ocotech conversation, where this specific certification is not going to protect you from PFAS. However, it will ensure that, the contaminants are under levels that they're testing at, or, you know what I'm saying? So Ocotech isn't really so much telling you that toxic stuff wasn't used. They're saying that when we tested the final product, it wasn't there at the level we were testing. Now, I don't know the specifics at all the levels of all the different things that they're testing. No, I don't. It's probably something that we'll have to do an investigation on later if they don't make changes, so I can be more tell people about this. But it's not a perfect certification. It's a good certification. It's better than nothing, because nothing is kind of, but the better testing, I would say, like EWG has a new certification and they're going above and beyond. So that is one of them. I'm hoping right now they just have one diaper that they certified. I'm hoping that a lot more of these brands go look at the EWG certification, because I feel like that specific one is gonna help you a lot more with all kinds of things that some things that we're not even talking about in here. So that they've gone above and beyond. So I would start looking for these third-party certifications. And I know that if these brands started getting this EWG certification, or more of them, I say go for it. Go for it. Please, please. That's how we can have more surety. That's how we can feel safer purchasing products, is having a third party come in and evaluate all the labs or do the labs themselves or something like that. So that's what's got to happen here.
Yeah, I think the EWG verification is really interesting. I think it's really, if I understand it correctly, what they do is they examine your manufacturing process. They're also checking for certain ingredients, making sure that certain ingredients aren't included.
Yeah.
That said, there are some products that I don't think would meet my standards or your standards that are EWG verified. So it's not like a perfect process, but if you kind of combine that certification with like your research and like the kinds of recommendations that we make, I think that you're in a good place. But there's still a little bit of work to be done there, right?
EWG isn't perfect, but they've created their new certification for diapers and mattresses is pretty good in comparison to other places. But again, they're not doing PFAS testing on their own. They're not sending things off to the lab. It's still, there would be a reason to come to my site to check this out, and I mean, just because, things can happen. And the funny thing is, a lot of times if things are going to happen, I'm going to grab it. And I got to tell you this little story. Okay. I don't know if I've told you this story about me, about when I was a kid. Oh my God, it's going to blow your mind. And people that have 9-year-old girls, it's going to blow your mind. So I used to live, so it's total sidebar. I used to live across the street from a graveyard. It's in Glendale. It's called the Grandview Graveyard. And when I was 9 years old, I would ride my bike in there, and they have this huge mausoleum. And the mausoleum has a basement. And this is like a 150-year-old graveyard. This is like not even, this is old graveyard, even old for California. This is crazy. So in this, I saw that it was open. So I went down into the dark basement because I'm not scared of a lot of things. I don't know. I'm just stupid, I guess you could say. But I went down the creepy stairs, and there was all these offices in the bottom of the basement. And I walked in, turned on the lights, and I saw these boxes. They were about this big, and they were to the ceiling. And there was like 300-400 boxes in this office. It looked as if they were using the office, and then they started stacking these boxes up. Well, I was like, what the heck was that? And I went and opened up one of the boxes. Oh, yes, I did, even at 9. I'm so curious. I could, like a cat, I'm going to get myself killed. I opened up the boxes, and I see this grayish, pinkish powder, which, if you know anything about cremation, I had found 450 boxes of cremated remains. I knew what I'd found. I knew that they were dead bodies. I ran home to my mom. I'm like, Mom, I found all these dead bodies in the graveyard. My mom's all like, wait, what? She's just like totally. So I'm telling you, I have a knack for finding things that are not supposed to be there. I kept going back and kept going back and kept going back. And the years go by, the boxes get more, the boxes get more. I keep telling my mom. She does nothing about it. And then decades later, was it a decade? I don't know, 15 years later, I get a phone call from my mom, and she's like, do you remember how you used to tell me that there were dead bodies in the You were right. The state raided the graveyard, and they had pocketed money. So like people die in the county and they have no person to bury them. Like they're homeless or they're just alone. So what happens to those people? The county takes the bodies, they cremate them, and then they pay graveyards to bury them. Well, they were pocketing the money and not burying all those bodies. And guess who found it? Me. And I was 9. So this just gives you an idea. I can find things that are not supposed to be there. I've been doing this since I was a little girl. Nobody likes it when I do it, but I finally found a purpose. That everybody can appreciate. And that's just me, right? That's all I got to say.
That is so you. And I was smiling and laughing during that story because you have told me this story before. And now you have boldly gone where no one else has gone before on this podcast with that story. But I do think it's a testament to your personality and like your investigative nature. So thank you for putting that skill to good use and serving all of us. Where can people find out more about this diaper study?
So it'll be on mamavation.com. That's MAMAVATION.com. And you could just click on blog right there and it'll be one of them. Or you can go into the search bar and type in diapers and boom, it'll come right up. So that's where it will be.
Okay. And then before I let you go, Can you tell me, for the listeners, if you could advise them, like, what is one change they should make, like overnight, if they could do something to improve their family's health and their overall well-being? What's that one thing that you would advise?
So you remember how I was talking about all this chemicals and processing that are not on the ingredient panel?
Yes.
So the truth of the matter is the more you process your food in your kitchen, i.e. cooking from scratch, the safer your family is. So think back. So avoiding, when they say processed food, literally it's processed in a manufacturing plant. The more you can process your own food, like making your own spaghetti sauce from scratch, for instance. We tested tomato sauces, we found nothing. We tested marinara, we found something. So it's happening somewhere in the processing. And so I would say just doing that and starting cooking from scratch, that alone will start to make your family safer overnight.
Okay. And that's the whole thing. I was just talking about this recently on Instagram. It's like anytime there's something that is too convenient, there's always a cost to it, right? Like, I don't want to go out and make my own pasta sauce. I've done it before. It takes me 3-4 hours, and I would love to be like that, like, little grandma in the kitchen, but that's not my lifestyle right now. So that's challenging, but I think that's really good advice. And I think the way to respond to that is like whenever possible, that's what you do, make your pasta sauce or, I don't know, some other examples. Like, I know people are like,
things as you can, just as many things as you can cut out. It's like you can cut up your own lettuce. You can, there's all these, like just lettuce alone, buy the head and do it yourself, because that right there, bacteria and salmonella and all those things happen most likely to those packaged, lettuces or spinach. So it's in everything that we're talking about, everything. And so it's just buy the carrots, you know what I'm saying? Like chop them up yourself. I mean, that's just an example of just making your family safer. Just avoid the things that have been prepackaged and put in little things for you as much as you can. I mean, as much as you can, because at the end of the day, we don't want to cause like undue stress on you as well, because that's kind of more toxic than the toxic stuff overall. So there is a give and take here where, you do something like you cook from scratch. But like if you're going crazy one day, order a pizza, but make sure to go to my fast food investigation first to see which ones have the best packaging. So there you go. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're trying to service all of this. We did fast food and their packaging, and we tested for PFAS. So you can actually go to my site and say, this is why I don't go to McDonald's, and this is why I avoid Chick-fil-A, of all things. But how is Wendy's safer and Del Taco is safer than Chick-fil-A? You know what I mean? Like, and Panera has stuff, but like Subway didn't. But it gives you reality. There's reality, and then there's marketing. And so we try to give you the reality. So, and again, we're not perfect. We can't be perfect, and we're in a modern world, so we're strapped for time every second of the day. When are you gonna get any chance, to get you time? There's no time for you. So we have to balance that. So it is a balance. But again, it goes back to you serving your family where you're at right now. All you have to do is look at your options. Better sometimes is the best place to be. You know what I mean? You don't always have to be best, because that's really expensive a lot of times, or it's hard to find, or it's like, something like that. You don't always have to be best. And this is a judge-free zone, because I don't know what your life is like, and I got to say, my life has gotten really complicated too, because I moved my mom in with us because she's very frail. And so I care for her. But all of a sudden we've got food in my house that I never had before. And so my lifestyle has changed just based on bringing someone else in here. And that's just, that's new things for my lifestyle. So I have to make decisions based on, the reality of the situation. And everybody's different. So, I mean, there's no judgment. It's just you trying to do the best you can, at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's all we can do. And I think, there's a certain level of like being reasonable. And sometimes you're going to shop from the better list. Sometimes you're going to shop from the best list. Sometimes you're going to buy the pasta sauce. And sometimes you might make your own pasta sauce. It's just really about balance and understanding that, like, give yourself grace. We all live in a modern world. We are all taxed in different ways than generations before us. And we can only do what we can do. Actually, can you tell the listeners about your book? Because your book was really helpful to me and I love it. I think we have the same kind of mindset, and I would love, there you go.
I got it right here. So Green Enough is basically how to detox your entire home from, from personal care to cleaning products and food and all that stuff. And there's a lot of swearing in here. So you got to have a sense of humor because, so even though it says Rodell, I was actually the first Penguin published Rodell author. So I had everything edited by Rodell, and then Penguin came in and took out 40 F words from my thing, but I still got like 40 in here. So, but it's a lighthearted book that just says you're green enough, but here are your options. This is what you can do, and here's the marketing, and here's the reality. And in this book, it's not just me writing it; it's also Tanya Altman, who is one of the spokespeople for the American Academy of Pediatrics. So we have a pediatric spokesperson also, and Pete Myers, who is my main scientist who coined the phrase endocrine disrupting chemicals. He's that dude who's been working and doing this forever. So really well informed, written to be funny, and I hope people enjoy it. But yes, I mean, I feel like I forget about my book all the time, but here it is.
Yeah, it's an amazing read, and it's really great if you're just getting started with non-toxic living and you're like, what am I doing? What is all of this stuff? Where do I start? And, tell me the truth. Like, be honest with me. Like, do I need to overhaul my whole life, or can I just start with the important stuff? I love that about your book. I love your style. I love your approach. I really appreciate everything that you do for women and consumers in general. And I think this diaper study is huge. And so thank you so much for the work that you do and for just sharing this with people and making it accessible to people, making it free. Bless you. You are such a blessing. So thank you so much, Leah. It has been so fun talking to you. It always is. And I can't wait to see what you test next.
Oh, I can give you a preview real quick.
Yeah.
Condoms are coming. Bandages, tea, chapstick, shampoos. I can't remember. There's more, but I can't remember. All kinds of stuff. I don't know if you can see it, but I've got some things right there waiting to be tested. Those are a bunch of oils that we're sending out for phthalate testing. So in addition to PFAS, we're dipping into phthalates just to answer questions that weren't answered in a prior investigation done by another NGO. So it's like, oh, I need to test all the avocado oils. Oh, I got to test more olive oils, So yeah, I will never be done. I will never have a spare. There's so much work for me to do. I'm very blessed that I can be of service to so many people.
You are. And I just remember asking you the other day, do you ever see yourself not doing this? And your answer was, heck no.
Yeah.
So
I can imagine myself doing this till I die, honestly. I mean, I've been offered, the site has been offered to be purchased quite a bit. I'm like, no.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned the oils, because when we first got on here, I thought they were like alcohol bottles behind you. And then I looked more closely and I was like, nope, that's olive oil, right?
That's olive oil. And there's some tallow, or not tallow, it's lard, beef tallow, olive oil, and avocado oils. Yeah.
So funny.
And you don't see the mess down here. That is all the things that are organized that I've got to send to the lab. Oh my gosh, my poor husband. Pray for my husband, because I'm a bit much.
I think you have to be to do this. It's just a totally different lifestyle. Anyway, Leah, thank you so much. And let's talk again when you have another study.
Thank you, my dear.